Disney messed up really bad by premiering Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny at the Cannes Film Festival this year, where it debuted to a 51% on Rotten Tomatoes like a month before its release date. Talk about a hype killer, especially when you've made one of the most expensive movies ever. But Dial of Destiny has bounced back a bit. It's now at a 66% with an 88% audience score. I personally went into this movie expecting like the worst thing ever made, and I was pretty pleasantly surprised. So let's break it down because I think it's better than a lot of today's franchise blockbusters, and yet worse than most of the Indiana Jones movies, which is causing this split in reception. But first, let me know what you think the best movie in the Indiana Jones franchise is. I rewatched them all and can definitively say it's The Last Crusade. To all of you who are hanging on to Raiders,
let it go.
So in Dial of Destiny, the Nazis are back, but this time we're in 1969 during the space race when Indy's goddaughter Helena, who's played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, tracks him down in order to find the legendary Dial of Archimedes that her father Baz had been obsessed with because it can change the course of history. Mads Mikkelsen plays Jürgen Voller, a Nazi who really can't let go of the past and is after the Dial as well. So it's an Indiana Jones movie. What you're gonna hear a lot is that this movie doesn't have the Spielberg magic, the spazzle dazzle. And I almost don't think that's a conversation that's even worth having. I mean, duh, who could live up to Steven Spielberg? And the original films were conceived as like pulpy B movies that just happened to have Spielberg behind the camera. And he was doing Bond, Hitchcock, hell, he was even doing Singin' in the Rain. There was such a grit and bravado and dynamism that he brought, even to Crystal Skull, and Dial of Destiny does feel very standard in comparison. Spielberg was actually set to direct this one, but there were disagreements about the script, so he stepped down and they picked James Mangold to come in. And James Mangold is a very talented filmmaker, so I think he very clearly played it pretty safe, but he's also adding his own perspective, one that we've seen him do before and do very well with Logan, where he laid Wolverine to rest until he was dug up and brought back to life. He's taking that same approach here, an aging hero, something more grounded and humanizing, if not way less devastating. And what I consider maybe the best scene in the film is sort of a microcosm of that. It's during a Moon Day parade early on where Indy is surrounded by the future, a world that's leaving him behind. His students don't care anymore, he and Marion are getting a divorce, and he rides a horse down through the New York subway, which kind of speaks for itself, but it's also really thrilling, and that scene looked really great. And it's not the greatest script in the world by a long shot, but it's also not I fed AI all the Indiana Jones movies. Like, it is constantly aware of its own themes about grief and acceptance. There's sort of a found family aspect in just closing that chapter. Like, Mangold is certainly not doing nothing, and that's why I'm shocked that so many people are just dismissing this film on the whole, because sure, it's not Logan. It was never gonna be Logan, but at least it has more thought and artistic integrity than like Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is also a huge saving grace. I think it does kind of cheap out and doesn't commit to her less desirable qualities, but she just brings so much pizzazz to her dialogue. Like, she's emphasizing all the right things. She's so engaging and has that independent, almost boyish charm to her that makes her a great mirror to Indy. Like, she challenges him. I thought her little sidekick Teddy, played by Ethan Isidore, was great as well. You will be reminded of Short Round, and no one can match up to Short Round, but he's still an incredibly charming sort of tribute to that character. Mads Mikkelsen, however, is doing uninspired stuff here, and as much as I love Mads, I actually think it's half him and half the script. I don't know if he wanted to be there or not, but like, go girl, give us nothing. I guess if you're playing a tried and true Nazi, it's not super easy to be enthusiastic about it, but hopefully we'll figure out how to use Mads Mikkelsen. Harrison Ford has played the character of Indiana Jones for almost twice as long as I have been alive, which is literally insane, but you really feel it in all the best ways. He is 80 years old, and that obviously limits the way that he can do action, but he's still really brings it. He's just the coolest guy, and he didn't mail it in at all. Boyd Holbrook is also in this, and I almost forgot about that, which makes me kind of sad because I love Boyd Holbrook. He always gives really fun performances. He's just not in this very much. Neither is Antonio Banderas, so don't get your hopes up. I also think this movie's length is being under-discussed as like a pretty big reason why some of it doesn't work. If this was an hour 45, 2 hours, it'd be way easier to forgive certain things, but they drag it out to 2.5 hours for literally no reason. And the end still somehow ends up feeling a bit rushed. I feel like I've been saying that with a lot of blockbusters lately. I don't know what's going on, but there's a scene with tuk-tuks in the middle that is not nearly good enough for how long it is. I think the second act definitely could have lost like 20 minutes. But none of the action is outright bad, and there are a couple sequences that are really great. The cold open, for one, which we know has the de-aging since it's a flashback. The de-aging itself doesn't look bad, but immediately, like, Harrison Ford's 80-year-old gravelly voice throws you off, and you're just not getting the expressiveness that you can tell he's giving. So it's a little uncanny, but not the worst thing in the world. There's an underwater scene that was unexpected and pretty effective. I really enjoyed this stretch where they're in this big cave. There's a nice little creepy bug moment. And I am proclaiming myself as a third act truther. They go for something so crazy in the third act that I have no choice but to respect it. Like, crazier than Crystal Skull. I even found myself pretty giddy, not just at the logistics of what they do, but an interaction that Indy has with an idol of his, and then the means by which he gets home afterwards, and why he goes home. I was reminded of Sam Raimi, and that could never be a bad thing, and that's all I'll say. A lot of people aren't gonna like it. That's the spice of life, but I say, yeah, fuck it, go for it. It's the John Wick method. Is there a lot of CGI? Yes. A couple of scenes are too dark. There are some bugs here and there, like continuity stuff or noticeable ADR, but I'd like to point out that a lot of that can be found in the other Indiana Jones films as well. Is this movie ultimately unnecessary? Of course. Indy already got his ending like twice, and I think this manages to justify its existence by like 30%. I'm just not the kind of person who really cares about that, but I understand people's frustrations. Other things, John Williams is still on the score, so you can't lose there. There's no post-credit scene, which I kind of liked, and I am so sure that there is like a blink and you'll miss it Steven Spielberg cameo, so if you've seen it, let me know if you noticed that. If you're gonna see it, keep an eye out. It's in Sicily right before they're about to go to the cave. I think he's like a tourist in the background wearing a red hat. But overall, I kind of see this as James Mangold trying to create that thoughtful swan song while also maintaining that pulpy adventure magic. I don't think it manages to excel at either of those things, and it was never gonna live up to Spielberg, but these things aren't black and white. There's still fun to be had here. I think audiences are gonna like it a lot. Mine clapped at the end, which I actually haven't seen happen in like a while. So it may not be the conclusion that we deserve, but it's the one that we got, and it could have been worse. So I'm going to give Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny 3 out of 5 stars. I had an overall positive experience with it, and though I do love the Indiana Jones movies, they weren't pivotal to my childhood in the way something like Lord of the Rings or Spider-Man were, and I feel very protective over those things. So again, I totally get diehard Indy fans having particular issues. But anyways, let me know your thoughts on Dial of Destiny, guys. Do you plan on seeing it? If you already saw it, let me know what you thought. Let me know what you think the best movie in the Indiana Jones franchise is. And buckle up, because July is beginning and we have even bigger fish to fry, and I am running out of time to watch all the Mission Impossible movies. But don't forget to like and subscribe and keep an eye out for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.